Hi, my name is Claudia Lardy, and I'll be making a presentation to you for my final project in the Introduction to Statistical Methods class. Now, I will be looking at the Muscogee County Elementary School population. I'm going to go ahead and share my PowerPoint screen with you. Just one moment, please. You should be able to see my screen at this point. Now, like I shared with you, I'll be looking at the Muscogee County School District Elementary School. So the purpose of my study is to examine the ethnic diversity trend among the Muscogee County School District Elementary School students and the ethnic diversity of the educators in the state of Georgia to determine if there is a need for greater diversity amongst Muscogee County District Elementary School teachers. Now, in terms of a summary of my lit review, in 2010, the U.S. Department of Education classified ethnicity into 7 categories, and pretty much these categories are Hispanics, American Indian, Asian, Black, Pacific Islander, White, and 2 or more races. Collecting racial and ethnic data at the national and district level has become extremely necessary given the growing trend of increasing minority and, by extension, a more diverse American population. Collection of this data is, as it relates to the school district, should include both student and teacher population. The National Educators Association, the NEA, highlighted that diversity in the American public school is mainly reflected in student population and not so much in the teaching population. And this is regardless of efforts by some school districts to hire more teachers of minority. The national minority percentage, or in other words, nationally minority students account for 40% of the student population, with only 5% representation for minority teachers. Given this trend, there is a prediction that there will be a critical shortage of role models for minority groups, and this could lead to further issues as it relates to the ability of American students to develop skills needed for a multicultural workplace. And the NEA holds that multiracial teaching staff are essential to the effective operation of schools and pretty much does not support the continuing trend of diminishing ethnic minority educators. So here we are with the problem. The researcher is trying to prove, well, the problem really is that there is continued diminishing number of ethnic minority educators in Georgia compared to the increasing number of minority population amongst its student population. And secondly, this is seen as a threat to the cultural competence of teaching staff. So minority groups continue to reflect poor grades, which is more prevalent in classes where teachers are not of their ethnicity. So the participants in the research, just want to share a little bit about the participants. The Muscogee County School District has 32 elementary schools, and those will be my participants. So my N will be equal to 32, my sample size. So the data of the ethnicity of the elementary school students in Muskogee School District was collected and reported by the Georgia Department of Education for the 14-15 academic year. The age level for elementary grade students from PK to P5 ranges from 4 to 11 years old. And as shared with you before, the categories of ethnicity as outlined by the Georgia Department of Education are Hispanic, American Indian, Asian, Black, Pacific Islander, white, and 2 or more races. The elementary school student enrollment for the Muskogee County School District is 16,126, and the gender classification for the elementary school is 48% female and 52% male. So the researcher came up with 3 research questions. Question 1 is there a diverse ethnic student enrollment in elementary schools of Muskogee County School District? The second research question is the ethnic diversity of the elementary students of Muskogee County School District reflected in the ethnic diversity of the teacher population? And the third research question is there a need for greater ethnic diversity of teachers in Muskogee County elementary schools? So the research process that will be used is, first, the descriptive nature of the data will be first analyzed by examining the frequency and the distribution of each ethnic category, after which measures of central tendency, variability, skewness, kurtosis were done and further illustrated, pictorially via bar graphs. The researcher also used chi-square goodness fit, and this was used to examine if there's a difference or existing between ethnicity distribution of elementary school students in Muskogee County and the ethnicity distribution of teachers in Georgia. Follow-up analysis using the standardized residual was conducted, and this was used to locate exactly where any statistically significant difference lied, and an effect size was also calculated. Eventually, conclusions were inferred based on the statistical analysis. So as stated, the first thing was to look at the frequency distribution of each ethnic category. And overall, after examining the frequency and the distribution of the data, results revealed pretty much top frequency in each group. And you can look at the tables on the slide and see that you can pretty much gather exactly where different ethnic categories had the most numbers. For example, you could look at the Asian population for the elementary schools and see that 75% of the elementary schools in Muskogee had between 0 and 15 Asian students. So overall, I just want to break down the top frequency in each category. So we had 62% of the elementary schools having 9 to 15 students who were Hispanic. We had 63% having between 0 to 1 American Indian. 75% had 0 to 15 students who were Asian. 31% had 101 to 201 students who were Black. 60% had between 0 to 1 student who was Pacific Islander. 56% had between 0 to 100 students who were white. And 18% had between 16 to 31 students who belonged to 2 or more ethnic groups. So the next thing I wanted to look at is the distribution of the data. And these bar graphs were extrapolated via SPSS. And I just want to give an overview of each bar graph, each ethnic category, so we can pretty much gather any kind of variability when we're considering the distribution under a normal curve. So the bar graph for the Hispanic ethnicity revealed that Hispanic students in Muskogee School District elementary schools followed a normal distribution with a positive skewness and peakness, as most of the scores were fairly distributed around the mean, with a few high enrollment at some schools. So we had a skewness for the Hispanic category equaling 1.84 and kurtosis of 3.38. And there were actually two outliers for this category. Z equal 2.17 and Z equals 3.02. So looking at the American Indians, they had a normal distribution with a positive skewness and Platy-Kurtic peakness, as most of the scores were spread out. So with a Platy-Kurtic peakness, you have a broad spread around the mean. And so with the skewness for the American Indian, we got 0.814 and kurtosis equal a negative 0.450. And in this category also, there were two outliers of Z equal 2.23 and Z equals 2.23. The bar graph for the Asian ethnicity revealed that Asian students in the Muskogee School District followed a distribution with a non-normal skewness and leptokurtic peakness. The skewness was 2.7 and kurtosis equals 8.07. And there were two outliers, Z equal 2.47 and Z equals 3.97. And we're going to move on to the Black category. So with the Black students in the elementary school, they had also a normal distribution with a slightly negative skewness and Platy-Kurtic peakness, as most of the scores were fairly distributed around the mean, with a few high enrollment at some schools. So with the skewness result, we got 0.17 and kurtosis equaling negative 1.098. And there was one outlier in this case of 2.13. The Pacific Islander category followed also a normal distribution with a positive skewness and peakness, as most of the scores were fairly distributed around the mean, with a few high enrollment at some schools. The skewness results came out to 0.999 and kurtosis of 0.239. There was one outlier in this instance of 2.64. For the white ethnic category, we also had a normal distribution with a slight positive skewness and Platy-Kurtic peakness, as most of the scores were spread out around the mean. The skewness result came out to 1.84 and kurtosis of 3.38. And there was one outlier in the white category where Z was equal to 2.15. The final bar graph belongs to those who categorize themselves with two or more ethnicities. And here we have them coming out, and we're looking at a normal distribution with a fairly normal skewness and peakness, as most of the scores were fairly distributed around the mean. The skewness result came out to 0.967, kurtosis came out to 1.37, and there were two outliers, Z equal 2.27 and Z equal 2.87. I want to move on to share the descriptive statistics with you regarding the central tendencies of each ethnicity in the Muskogee County School District elementary schools. So on your screen, you can actually see how each ethnicity is broken down in terms of its mean, mode, median, and standard deviation. So first, I want to take a moment to look at the range for the data that we use. So the examination of the descriptive statistics showed that the range for each ethnicity came out to the following. So Hispanics had a range of 154, American Indians had a range of 4, Asians had a range of 85, Blacks had a range of 497, Pacific Islanders had a range of 5, Whites had a range of 416, and 2 or more had a range of 53. Now, looking directly at what is on the screen, the median for the Hispanic data was 44, and pretty much that is revealing that the average number of Hispanic students enrolled in Muskogee School Elementary, the Muskogee County School District Elementary School, is 44. And if you should just look, you can see American Indian has a mean of 1, Asian has a mean of 10, Pacific Islanders have a mean of 1, White has a mean of 130. Those categorizing themselves with 2 or more ethnicity has a mean of 25. But I just want to point out that the highest mean was for Black with 292. So it means therefore that in the Muskogee County School District, the average number of students per elementary school is 292. Now, of course, you can go on to see the mode and the median for each group. So now I want to take a look at the standard deviation, or how the final measure of dispersion occurs. So for each category, and you're seeing the screen in front of you, the standard deviation for Hispanics came out to 36.3. For American Indians, 1.3. For Asian, it came out to 18.7. For Blacks, 139. Pacific Islanders, 1.4. White, 134. And 2 or more came out to 11.5. So if we were to examine, if we were to use the mean and the standard deviation, then we could get some idea of just looking under a normal distribution curve for each of the ethnic categories. We can see how the data might be spread out based on the mean and the standard deviation. So for example, the Hispanic category, one standard deviation above the mean was 80.3, and one standard deviation below the mean was 7.7. American Indian came out to 2.3 with one standard deviation above the mean, and one standard deviation, below the mean came out to negative 0.3. And that went on. Just wanted to point out that that was also calculated by the researcher just to get some more detail about how the data was spread out under a normal distribution curve. I want to bring you to the inferential statistics that was used. Now, in using the inferential statistics, we use a chi-square goodness fit and a follow-up standardized residual. Now, with that, what the researcher did was to examine or pull 2 sets of data together. One data represented the ethnic spread or diversity of the elementary school students in the Muskogee County School District for 2014 to 2015 academic year. And then the researcher also pulled in the ethnic diversity or the spread for Georgia teachers, or teachers in the state of Georgia for 2003 to 2004. A limitation for the research was that the researcher could not locate recent information or more current data on ethnicity for Georgia teachers, or even national diversity. So if we're looking at the table on your screen, we can see if we should compare the two, you can actually see where the numbers will jump out at you. For Hispanic students, had a representation of 9%, at the elementary level in Muskogee County School District. At the state level, teachers accounted for 0.7% to be Hispanics. American Indian, we're looking at 0.2% for elementary students and 0% for Georgia teachers. Asian, we're looking at 2% for elementary students and 0.4% for Georgia teachers. Blacks, we're looking at 58% for elementary students and 20% for Georgia teachers. Pacific Islanders, 0.2% for elementary students and 0% for Georgia teachers. In the white ethnic category, we had 26% for elementary students and 78% for Georgia teachers. Under those who identify themselves with two or more ethnic categories, you had 5% for elementary students and 2% for Georgia teachers. So the results of the chi-square goodness fit and follow-up standardized residual test. So the results indicated that there was a statistically significant difference between the ethnicity of the Muskogee County School District elementary students and the ethnicity of the teachers of the state of Georgia. In fact, we had a chi-square with a degree of freedom of 6 equaling 371.79 with P equaling 0.000. And in calculating P, we used a alpha of 0.05. So we can see based on that there is a statistically significant difference. With P being below alpha of 0.05, you conclude, you can infer that there is a statistically significant difference. The follow-up standardized residual test actually helped us to locate exactly where that statistical significant difference was located, and pretty much using a critical value of 1.96, the differences between the ethnicity of elementary students and the ethnicity of teachers in Georgia State did not exist in the following categories. So we had where Hispanics had 9.5 residual, Asian had a 2.7 residual, Pacific Islanders had a 1.9 residual, American Indians 1.9 residual, Blacks had an 8.69 residual, and those with 2 or more ethnicities had a residual of 2.85. And it being, the numbers being positive shows that there is no statistically significant difference in these ethnic categories. However, there was statistical significance between the ethnicity of elementary students and ethnicity of Georgia teachers in the white category. We had a residual result coming out to negative 5.9. And eventually this data was used to calculate the effect size, which shows that we had a 1.93, which is a large effect size, it being greater than 0.5. So after calculating the frequency, the descriptive statistics, and also inferential statistics, we can make some conclusions. Pretty much it will be eventually narrowed down to the questions, but I just wanted to share before we concluded based on our research questions, I wanted to share that the results of the research supports that there is a relatively normal distribution of each ethnic category in the Muskogee County School District elementary schools, with some schools having more of a specific ethnicity than others. This was shown for Blacks and whites, which showed a kurtosis of negative 1.098 and a negative 0.599 respectively. And there was a greater number of Black students, which accounted for 58% in the elementary schools of Muskogee County District, with the second highest ethnicity being white students I'm sorry, with 26%. So let us now look at our research questions and see how the analysis of the data can help us to answer the research questions that were highlighted initially. So to answer research question 1, the researcher concluded that it was observed that there is a diverse ethnic student enrollment in Muskogee County elementary schools. However, there are two ethnicities that have higher enrollment numbers than others. And these ethnicities, as you would have concluded, are Blacks and whites. Furthermore, to answer question 2, a chi-square goodness fit along with the follow-up standardized residual test was used, and this pretty much specifically reveals that there is a statistical significant difference between the ethnicity of elementary students in Muskogee County schools and the ethnicity of Georgia teachers in the white category. And what the researcher did was to use the ethnicity of Georgia teachers, inferring that it is a reflection of the ethnicity of those in Muskogee County School District. To answer question 3, based on the statistical evidence, there is a need for a greater ethnic diversity of teachers in Muskogee County elementary schools, especially among the Black ethnicity, which showed enrollment of 58% with Georgia teachers within the Black ethnicity at a level of 20%. So of course we have to look at, just being a researcher. The researcher wanted to know why and what are the implications for the future. So given the conclusion of the research, it begs the question of why more ethnically, diverse teachers are not employed at the elementary level in Muskogee County School District. And some of the reasons included minority teachers are often employed in districts that are struggling financially and may often leave. So that is going to reduce the percentage amount that is attached to minority teachers. And secondly, given the low entry salary, when compared to other professions, minority teachers may opt not to enter teaching. So you have other higher paying professions that will attract minority teachers or minority individuals. Minority teachers, which is the third reason, minority teachers in low performing schools are 50% more likely to leave. Further research, now looking at implications for the future and opportunity for research. So further research needs to be done on identifying and implementing effective programs to improve the enrollment, graduation, and hiring of minority teachers. And in terms of trying to get them to stay or even bring them on, more research is needed on incentives for minority teachers to continue teaching. So overall, I would say the research questions were answered, and this research, just to share one of the limitations the researcher incurred, the research was limited by the unavailability of more recent data for the ethnicity of teachers, both nationally and statewide. Regardless, this research can be used to support the need for more minority teachers and programs to attract them in order to in order to match up with the growing diversity of the elementary student population in Muskogee County. Now, that is the information that I wanted to share with you regarding my research project. I enjoyed it very much. And of course, because I looked at each category, it really gave me a chance to utilize the information I learned over the last few weeks in my Introduction to Statistical Methods class. Thank you for your time, and I hope you learned and enjoyed the information I shared with you.